I'm wearing booty shorts because my paper long. It's giving her face, ass. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Hi, I'm Danny. Welcome to my dark desk. Take a sippy, sippy, puffy, puffy. Like, comment, subscribe, do as you deem fit, because we are here to talk about 90 Day Fiance. So I'm going to divide these videos into two. We're going to talk about 3 couples here and 3 couples there. So we're going to talk first about Marissa and Edward. So we start off the episode with Edward trying to fix Marissa's fence. He was breaking apart the fence, saying whoever did this is an idiot. He's trying to be helpful around the house because it's in response to Marissa saying that it's like she has a 3rd child. Marissa wants Edward to be a strong man whose hand she doesn't have to hold and plan for like a child. So he takes her outside to look at his work and she says it looks trashy, it looks terrible, and to be fair, she is right. Why did he take the crown mold, it wasn't crown moldings, but the moldings around her floor, like did a whole karate move and nailed it into the broken fence? Like it looked bad. She was like saying, yeah, this is terrible, this looks like a white trash house. And he said, well, who cares what other people think if they're not paying your bills? And she says, well, she cares about how what she owns reflects to other people. So they have different values. I'm gonna tell you this right now, it's not gonna work if you have different values with the person you're seeing. It won't work. So there's a little mess in the backyard as well. And she's like, take all that crown molding crap that you nailed to my fence down and move this garbage. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Do you need help? He's like, no, don't worry about it. Worry about your nails. And in his interview, he says that every time I try to do something good or positive, she always cuts me down. And anyhow, but I noted that she is very condescending while she's talking to him. So in the next scene, I guess they're going to New York so that she could go back to work. And as they're getting into the car, we see an interview with Edward saying that he's so excited to be a tourist in New York City. And this is the first time he's a tourist. In the car, she asks him, what is his plan? Do you have any money? And he says, well, yeah, I do. I have a couple of hundred. She's like, did you bring it with you? He's like, no. And she's like, well, did you bring your wallet? He's like, oh, you know, a wallet's one of those things I need to buy. She says, well, so do you have ID on you? So this man, this Hispanic presenting man is walking into New York City without any identification, and her idea wasn't to turn around that car and get his money and most importantly his identification. He said he was so excited to go to New York that he forgot to pack these things. And in the interview, she's like, what was he thinking? Not planning to like bring money, not bring his ID. He's gonna walk around the big city. How's he plan to pay for things? You know how he's gonna pay for things, girl, come on. And the conversation in and of itself made me uncomfortable because they're trying to give us an illusion that there's not a transactional situation happening. She knows that she makes so much more money than him, that she's actually established in this country and he doesn't have that kind of money. Even if he brought money from DR, even if he brought all his tips from the DR and the job that he worked in DR, it's not gonna be enough to sustain him in the city. In the car, she's acknowledged that the last couple of days, probably since her mom left, that she's been distant and cold, and she's acknowledging that they live very different lifestyles. She's like, in PA, she's taking care of her kids, which is her full-time job, and in New York, she is running her business. In other words, like, I can help you with that. And Marissa says it's not a matter of helping me with that. She wants him to be able to be self-sufficient and do his own thing, to make his own plans, to have something established for himself. And Edward's like, well, I have to be honest here. I feel like you should calm down, and you have decided what your life is going to be, and because of the decisions that you made, of course you're gonna get overwhelmed. And she cuts him off immediately. She's like, well, that's not fair, and I didn't choose to get divorced, and I thought I was going to be in a full family with 2 incomes, and this is not the choice, and I would never complain about having my kids. And he's like, wait, I wasn't talking about your children. It felt like the conversation got away from them because what he was talking about is the ways she perceives and manages her stress. That's what I got from what he was saying. You have to figure out how to deal with the fact that it's always going to be stressful because of those choices. And it really sounded like mother's guilt. Like, I would never change my mind about having kids. I'm like, girl, nobody. He didn't say that. And he said, that's not what I said. And Marissa's like, well, you said you chose this life. And Edward says, life is going to be tough and it's inconvenient. And the toughness is inconvenient. She says, well, I'm just trying to settle in in and figure out, how am I going to manage another person, another expense in my life? And I'm like, that is ugly to say about your partner, because ultimately you knew Edward would not be able to work for a year. You knew that the job he had in Dominican Republic did not pay him as much as how much you're getting paid to run your business in America. You know that there was a class difference, a culture difference, and the confines of entering into this country further limits his economic resources. You understood that when you signed up. You said to the United States government that you would sponsor him. Why are you talking about how he's an inconvenience now? Because what, he doesn't plan for things? Didn't you notice that he wasn't a planner? Anyhow, so one of the last things she says in the car is that she really has to think if this is the right path for her. And Edward was like, well, you're not alone in making a decision. I don't want to make a mistake either. I was just like, ooh. Yikes. The next couple we're going to talk about is Mallory and Raşit. The opening scene with Mallory and Raşit is washing the dishes. Girl, he's a keeper. In their interview, Mallory says her and Raşit argue, not in a terrible way, but fairly regularly about cleanliness. And she says apparently Muslims clean all day, every day, sun up to sundown. I'm like, oh my god, am I Muslim? I love to clean. Mallory admits she's a messy person, so she tells Raşit that they are on their way to look for a place that sells a bidet. She says she calls around a couple of places to shop for a bidet for Raşit, and I'm like, and I am confusion, and confusion is me. Why don't you just order one online? So bidet is very important to Raşit. He says that in Turkey, if your ass isn't washed, you're not clean, and I agree. And she agrees too. In the interview with the couple, she says things have been really tense between them, and she wants him to have a bidet to help him feel like home. So in the car, she asks for her sandwich, and she takes a bite, she puts down the sandwich, and then he picks up the sandwich and takes a bite, and she just lets him do it, giggling. And that kind of bothered me, because you know your sandwich has pork in it, and you know he's Muslim and he doesn't want to eat pork. He spits it out. He actually drinks water and spits it out of his mouth, and she says, oh, stop being dramatic. I'm like, it's not dramatic. He's like, pork is a dirty animal. That's how I was raised. That's all I know. And she says, well, bacon is the best kind of pork. And as annoyed as I am at her for letting him eat that sandwich, I agree. Bacon is the best pork. So as they're driving to the bidet spot, they pass by the place where she had the horrible car accident almost a year ago, where Mallory, her best friend Malika's mom, and Malika's son were hit in a head-on collision by a distracted driver. They were all hospitalized for a week, but she had to have 3 feet of her intestines removed. Raşit was very upset because he couldn't be with her at that time. This is why Raşit is my favorite guy in this cast, in this season of 90 Day. He said that when he found out she was in the hospital and he thought about the idea of her dying, he said, if that happened, I know I would never marry again, because I love Mallory. She's my everything. He starts to cry, she starts to cry, and like I'm like, oh, I actually started to cry, because I'm like, oh my god, he loves her. And he had no shame crying this time. Like before, when he was leaving his family, he's like, oh, I'm not supposed to cry, you're supposed to cry. But when he was talking about actually losing her, how she is everything to him, like he was unabashedly crying, and I was just like, oh my god, that is hot. They go to the site and they talk about what happened and how terrified she was, the speed in which it happened, and he was saying how hard it was to not be there for her and how scary it was. They both cry, they hug and say they love each other at the site, and as they're walking away, he's holding her hand and he kisses her hand. I'm like, they're so sweet. So back in the car, Raşit says he's glad she's here, and she's like, me too, I'm glad we're all here. And Raşit says, thank God. And then he's like, can I put on music? And she's just like, no. Don't you know he puts on music and then starts dancing and twerking? And they start dancing together. They're so fucking cute. Oh my god, I can't stand it. It makes me sick. So he admits in the car that going to look at bidets is a little difficult for him because he has no money. He has nothing to contribute to this, and it bothers him. She understands because they have a wedding coming up and she gets stressed about money from time to time. She also points out that Raşit never lived on his own. He doesn't know how to pay expenses the way she does as an independent adult. She's like, it's the norm in Turkey for people to stay with their family well into their 20s, so that was his norm. He's gonna have a rude awakening given how expensive everything is. So money money is an issue for them. They go to the shop with the special toilets. She walks in and immediately says she can't afford anything in that store. And what I would do if I was her is turn our asses back around, go to a different store and buy a bidet there. So the salesperson shows them different toilets, and for one of them, Raşit is like, it does a pulsating thing. His Raşit is like, I'm so sorry, I don't want it. This is kind of making me horny or something like that, and had them all cracking up. And he got to use the bidet in the restroom, and Mallory was in there with him, which was a little weird. And they were just giggling and laughing like little kids. Like, they have so much fun together. It's cute. He says that he wants the bidet, the $800 one. She's like, $800 is a lot of money. He's like, well, baby, it's something I need. She's like, no, it's a want and it could wait. And she's like, we could look at cheaper ones. He mentions that we have money, and we find out that she got a settlement from that accident. It's locked and secured. She doesn't have easy access to it because she knows that if she has easy access to it, she would spend it. So she runs her life like that money doesn't exist. It kind of irritates her that he would bring it up like it's something that they could use, because she's like, I am not going to use up all that money, and then what if I lose my man? Then I'm not gonna have money or my man. Damn. I love Mallory too. She is one of my favorite women. I mean, who did you vote for? Other than that, she seems like a very sweet woman, and they're cute together. So she wants to make sure that they don't touch the money because she wants to keep it secure for her future. So next couple we're going to talk about is Ashia and Maxwell. In the morning, the producer's talking to Maxwell as he's getting ready for the day, and he says him and Ashia plan to go to the market and discuss their plans about the visa, and he feels like he has to be present whenever Ashia encounters his family, because just to keep everybody in check. The producer asks him what would happen if his family doesn't accept Ashia, and he's just like, think about it when I have to cross that bridge. I'm like, oh boy. He already knows his family is not full aligned with Ashia. So he calls Ashia in to help him pick out his clothes. He picks out this white shirt, which was really nice. She's like, oh no, baby, you're gonna be too hot. And I'm like, she makes him change his outfit to something brown to match her dress. And she's like, you can wear the white shirt at night. He looks good, by the way. Doesn't he look like Malcolm Jamal Warner? R.I.P. Anyhow, in the interview, the producer asks, hey, Ashia, do you think Maxwell has a good fashion sense? And she's like, oh, you're gonna get me into trouble answering that, because she mentions the blue suit that he wore to pick her up, and apparently it was an African garb. Now this is where we get a little scammy tea from Maxwell, because he says, oh, in the videos I looked at of people picking up their booze at the airport, they bring flowers and they wear like kind of an African garb to say welcome to Africa. So that's what I did. It's an African garb, and they showed the picture. It didn't look bad. She's like, oh, and those loafers he wore. It sounds like he was doing research on how to entice an American girl. You know what I mean? That's what felt a little scam adjacent. So she's telling him what to wear. He wants to wear full shoes. She's like, oh, wear the sandals. Well, you're not the one who's going to have to wear. You always want your way. She's like, yes, I do. In the interview, he says Ashia has bossy behavior, and his family wants him to have peace, love, and respect from the woman that he marries. And that implies that he knows Ashia is not going to give him any of the three. And he doesn't want his family to misunderstand her behavior. I'm here to tell Maxwell they're not misunderstanding anything about Ashia. They're picking up what she's putting down. They know exactly the kind of person that she is. So she's taking her sweet time in the bathroom. Maxwell comes up to, like, you know, kind of hurry her along. And he also says, you know, when you're around my parents, be sweet, but be respectful. Greet them, good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am. Don't say hey. And in the interview, he's like, when you say hey to an elder, it's like talking it's like you're talking to a dog or maybe a little cat. And he says that he wasn't raised that way. She asked him, did his family say anything about her? And he said that his mother was surprised that she was trying to change things about him. And she says, well, you should have backed me up on it. And he says, well, do him a favor, don't criticize him again in front of his parents. So in her interview, she says she feels like his family attacked her and they were not trying to hear her out. They weren't very open-minded. She says she's trying to get him to be a better person, and no, you're not. You're not talking about his character. You're talking about what he looks like. And then she jumps and says, she says that she wanted him to be a better person and better looking, and she's shocked that they're not on board. Of course they're not on board. They love him. They love him for who he is, not what he looks like, you bird brain. She's mad that he didn't have her back because he's going along with her demands. So she doesn't understand why he didn't back her up in that moment when his family was like saying, why would you change him? At breakfast, they go downstairs. Maxwell's mother, Maria, his dad, Lamont, and Ashia's mom, Juliet, were at the table, and she comes in, she's like, hey ma, to her mother, and she's like, hello pa, hello ma, and Maxwell's like, sweetie, correct yourself. And she's like, oh, good morning sir, good morning ma'am. And she looks so irritated that she had to say that. Maria asks, where are you going? And Maxwell says, to the market to discuss the visa. And Maria's like, why can't you discuss it in the house? house. And Maxwell says, we need to discuss everything. Don't worry. We're not talking about changing my nose, my hair, or whatever. We're just going to talk about the visa. We're going to just go out and be at the market. In the interview, the mother says she's speechless. This woman is bucking for an Emmy. She is so dramatic. Doesn't she look like Lynn Winfield from A Thin Line Between Love and Hate? Anyhow, she's saying that submission for a woman means that it doesn't matter if your man is tall or short, doesn't matter if he's poor or rich, it doesn't matter how he dresses. He says what to do and you obey. And she implies that Ashia is arrogant, that she thinks she's so above everyone and everything that she doesn't have to obey. So Maxwell and Ashia are in the cab. Ashia brings up the fact that his mother stared at like she hates her, and Maxwell's like, oh, when? Bruh, you know when? You know your mother can't stand that bitch. Maxwell's like, well, I told you how to greet her. Why, when I told you how to greet her, you didn't greet her the way I told you to? I mean, you gotta understand my family. They're not gonna say anything to your face. They're just gonna observe it. And he's like, it's that simple. Just follow the rules and you'll be fine. And she's like, oh, is it that simple? In the interview, she said she's been calling him Ma and Pa from the beginning since she's met them. And they haven't said anything. Like, why suddenly all these rules are being imposed on her? I'm like, girl, because it is. Anyway, they're having so many difficulties with the visa, with everything. He's like, are you sure God wants us to be married? Ashia says, wait, what? Ashia is taken aback. She says, it sounds like you're letting other people make your decisions. You should be ashamed of yourself for saying that. Maxwell says, if your mother told you not to marry me, wouldn't you listen? She says, well, my mother would only say no if there was abuse or if you were cheating on me. Well, sweetheart, if you are trying to change everything about him and you're talking down to him and messing with his self-esteem, that's abusive, my dear. Yeah, it's not like putting hands and feet on somebody, but you are categorically trying to fuck with their self-esteem. That's abusive behavior. But anyway, Maxwell says, well, being disrespectful to his family is a good reason. And she's like, well, they may say no because of a misunderstanding. Maxwell's like, what misunderstanding? You should learn my culture. And she says, quit screaming in my ear. Instead of addressing what he's talking about, and mind you, he wasn't screaming. And he says, I think I have to yell in your ear for it to stick. Maxwell says to her, if you keep going, you're gonna put me and you in trouble. Don't worry. I was just like, oh, he has a battery in his back. He is charged. In the interview, Ashia's surprised. She's like, this is not the man I fell in love with. Him questioning me is like him questioning God. His mother has it right. Ashia is arrogant. They get out of the car. The cameraman is behind them. You see Maxwell trying to put his hand around her shoulder and she just wipes it off. Maxwell says, you better behave. She says, quit saying behave. I'm not a child. Maxwell says, you're acting like one. And she says, you are treating me like a child. Isn't that something? You tell him what to do all the time. You tell him what to wear. You dress him. You get mad when he tries to bark some orders the way you bark orders. Isn't that funny? Ashia buys herself a little bit of this, a little bit of that. She buys a purse for Maria. But at the house is where the true tea is going on. The parents are all together. Maria starts off very polite. She's like, Juliet, how did you sleep? And Juliet is like, oh, I slept good. I slept good. Maria says that she's concerned because Ashia wants to change everything about Maxwell. What's up with that? And Juliet was just like, oh, well, you know, she just wants his skin to be smoother. Maria changes tactics. She's like, well, in Africa, women have to obey men. Women have to submit to men. And Juliet's like, yeah, that's right, that's right. Maria says, well, maybe Ashia, since she makes so much money, thinks that she could control everything, rule everything, that she doesn't have to obey. And Juliet's like, no. Ashia's not like that. She doesn't care about money like that. She picks Maxwell because she loves him. She could have been married years ago. Ashia's 38 in the moment. Clement looks stunned, but Maria was just like, ding, 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 ding. They want their son to marry a woman 25 and 30, not 38, and definitely not 40, because apparently 40, according to Clement, who's obviously a gynecologist, menopause is knocking on the door. So Juliet's like, oh, so is it a problem for women to marry too old? What's considered too old? And Clement says 30 is the maximum. We don't fool Allah over 30. And Maria says, I'm afraid for these reasons, this age difference. The last scene, we're dealing with a fucking villain, because in the interview with Maria, she says, I don't want Ashia to be a problem for my son. Ashia and Maxwell will not go further. And then she says, they're gonna obey mama. And she's just nodding, looking at the camera like, they're gonna obey mama. I'm like, oh boy, oh, this got dark. Yeah, so that is my recap review. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do as you deem fit. Keep your sippy sippies, puffy puffies, whatever you need to cope close, but your instincts closer, and I'll be sure to catch you on the flips. Bye. Pretty bird, pretty bird. Pretty bird. Okay, I'm serious.